Hi, my name is Melissa Weddle at the University of Montana. I'm part of the economic team with Ash Morgan and John Whitehead with building outdoor communities. Today, I'm going to talk about my part of the presentation that we gave at McDowell Tech Community College on May 13th. While we have collected so much great data and learned the background behind it, the methods, now it's time to think about how we use that data to tell our story. It's so critical to find the right information and the right way to display it. You want to think about how memorable a story is, how impactful it is, persuasive, and engaging. For example, you can see the different infographics that we made, which with each of the counties, thinking about the full economic output for Western North Carolina, as well as the full-time jobs, labor income, and then thinking about regional county level taxes. These are the kind of data and numbers that you want to connect together with the stories. You want to reach different types of audiences, both on an intellectual and emotional level. So the first step is framing your story around the data, deciding which data to share with which audiences. You might go to a Parks and Recreation audience that you don't have to convince why Parks and Recreation are so important or why you need trails in your community. So then you might look more at telling a story about the data and the impact that it has on those communities. If you're going to county commissioners or other types of officials that may not come from our industry, you may have to tell a different story before you get to the numbers. Think about visuals. It's always important to have pictures, especially if you have communities in which there's lots of trail building, greenways, the community comes out. While we quantify much of our data, there's a whole nother set of stories that what we would call as researchers is qualitative that are really powerful. How you build those communities together, how you connect, and what that means for future generations. Then you take this and put it into a narrative. Make sure that the visuals have the right context for the audience and it communicates why it matters and what actions to take. Connect the data to the audience, communicate effectively, and then tell that story and make sure that story is inspiring change or action. If you watch some of the best motivational speakers, they start with something that is like, this is the problem, this is the challenge we have. But if you look over here, here's the solution, here are opportunities. Again, coming back to, but this is the problem, but this is how we get there. And so that's how storytelling really inspires people emotionally. Thinking about who can make it happen, again, collecting this data, telling that story, thinking about those different audiences, who are your decision makers, who has direct influence, and who has indirect influence. So we all know there's a mayor in town, but there's also unofficial mayors. You also have people that will always support you, that will show up to every meeting. And then you have people that will never support you. And so thinking about how those direct and indirect influences, how you can navigate that to tell the story, who you can invite to be at the table, who can help you tell this, and then making sure you get out in front of all those decision makers. I find often as parks and recreation professionals, it's easy to preach to the choir. It's easy for all of us to talk to each other. We love what we do, but you have to get outside of that sphere. You have to go find those decision makers in your community and make connections, how Parks and Rec, trails, whatever you're building, can connect to different initiatives and goals in communities. This is another slide to kind of connect it together. What is the context? What are you telling? How are you going to hook the audience? Who are the characters? Who are those key players? What's this problem, this opportunity for improvement? What are you trying to solve and how are you going to get there? And then coming up with that solution, thinking about different grants, bringing different people to the table. What is the value of this solution or what is the proposition? What will people gain by it? The goal is that people leave meetings or leave listening to this story and they know how important it is. So coming over to the right, Who's my audience? Is the story relevant to my audience? It might not be that important to them. You have to figure out what they value. What are you trying to explain? Your goals? Who are you trying to get buy-in from? Does it solve a problem that they actually care about? And have they heard this story before? In many communities, I'll share in Watauga County in Boone, North Carolina, we've tried to get a community center for probably over 30 years. It's a story people had heard over and over. So, what was different about this time and why was it so needed? Here's an example a colleague of mine used in Montana. The Bridger Mountains are outside of Bozeman. And so when you're telling this story, you could just say, during the summer, 1,700 people recreate in the Bridger Mountains every day. Okay, what does that mean exactly? During the summer, 3 times of Bozeman's population recreates in the Bridger Mountains. During the summer, the number of people recreating in the Bridger Mountains is equivalent to the population of Alexandria, Virginia. During the summer, the equivalent of every Bozemanite recreates in the Bridger Mountain each month. So think about different ways that you can share this data and story to put it into context. You are reading this slide correctly, although it is very sad sometimes, especially as a professor, thinking about how much people listen and how they can pay attention. The average attention span of a human is about 12 seconds. 8 seconds now compared to 2000, and the average attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds. So when you think about going in to present, um, sometimes I hear people go on and on. The presentations last 30, 45 minutes, and in public meetings, this is not what people want to hear. Their time is valuable. People that volunteer, when they come to public meetings, they're giving up something with their family. So think about how can you tell your story in a concise, short, powerful manner. I will leave this here, and I know John and Ash have other parts of this presentation to give, but I want to thank you all and feel free to reach out anytime as you work to share your story.